Texans and the Chicago Bears that did not bear any sort of ramifications on seeding and playoffs, and it's very important to what happens in the postseason. Mm-hmm. The NFL has an incredibly complicated puzzle to try to put together in a very short period of time,
which they will figure out. And whatever they come up with, it's a circumstance nobody wants to be in, and you got to kind of just roll with the punches.
I think you said it too. That I think everybody. Okay, I get it. There is no perfect answer for this. There is no. Oh, of course, do it like that. Yeah. It'll be. Yeah, but this guy's getting the. We understand why.
It will figure itself out.
It'll figure itself out along the way. All
right,
so
we have a good suggestion for a new segment. So we can talk about that in the next segment.
All right, we'll do that too. Plus, we got the phone calls about
people want to talk about Trevor Bauer
and what the Dodgers should do with him. They got to make a decision here in relatively short order about what they're going to do next. That's coming up. It's Trav and Slee, 710 ESPN.
Hey, Laker fans, John Ireland here. Have you downloaded the new ESPN LA app? You got to get this thing. It's great. You can get Travis and Sliwa, Mason and Ireland, Sedano and Cap, and all of our Lakers talk with Slee right in the palm of your hand.
You're just one tap away from everything Lakers. You could even win Lakers tickets.
React to the Lakers on ESPN LA app.
Download the new ESPN LA app in the App Store or on Google Play.
Listen to your Wednesday right here on 710 ESPN, your flagship radio station for the Los Angeles Lakers, yo. And Lakers coverage begins at 5:30 p.m. today after Sedano and Cap. With the Toyota Lakers countdown to tip-off with Slee, tip-off at 7 p.m. Hear it all right here on 710 ESPN. Right now, continuing for your Wednesday, more of Travis and Sliwa.
So we got a great suggestion from one of our listeners.
I don't like
it. Was Chris Reader. Is his handle on Twitter. He says, listening to Trav's car advice just now makes me think that we need a new segment. It's called Trav's Dad Advice. And he says, where Trav doles out useful tips to youngsters, like always rotate your tires, get your fries without salt so that you have a
Don't stay
batch.
overnight at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. I think you have
good one.
You have great
These are
nuggets
good.
of advice. That
Yeah.
can be great.
Well, first
And
of
get
all,
angry doing it too.
I get angry at home. Like my actual children have to bear the brunt of my angry dad stuff that comes along. For instance, I got in Michael's. I think I told you this. The smoking, we got that fixed. This was. I don't know.
If you
6
did
months
tell
or so
me
ago.
it, I could have forgot.
You may
heads
have.
up
This may
there.
be new for you, Al. You never know. I get in the car. I'm driving it down the street, and the car is just like pulling hard to the right. So clearly, the alignment is super out of whack, right? And so I get out of the car. I see it, and the tires have been worn uneven. Like, okay, great. So now I got to get an alignment fixed. And I got to get new tires. The whole thing. And I'm like, hey, did you not feel that the car like basically makes a right-hand turn by itself? And he's like, is it not supposed to do that? I'm like, no.
Is this the same child that was smoking and then you didn't know about?
Yes.
I was singling the whole time.
It's like if you have to actively turn it to the left to get it to go, that's not how, like, when you drive my car, it doesn't do that. When you drive your mom's car,
His left forearm is so in shape. Just holding the steering wheel to just go straight.
any of the lights on your dashboard come on, if there's smoke coming out of your dashboard, if the car turns without the wheel being turned, you need to tell me these things. I don't feel like you understand that you don't just take it to the garage and they fix it for free. This costs me every time we take the car there, we pay for it.
To answer the suggestion, great idea to have Travis's dad advice on a
I learned it by watching you.
regular basis.
We'll have a stager in which we include that, and then we'll whenever you have it.
You're right. Don't skip the Rose Parade. Go to the Rose Bowl every time you get a chance. Go to the football game, the pageantry of the game. Everything about it is terrific. The parade, trust me when I tell you,
I cheated.
Skip it.
I
Watch it on
cheated.
TV.
Walked 10 minutes. I'm like, that's cool.
Have you
One more band.
You
Okay,
guys
let's get out of here.
grew up outside of Southern California. So I understand the attraction of that parade of somebody who grows up in the Midwest and it's very cold in January. You grow up in the East Coast and it's very cold and it's 70 degrees on January. But it's just horses and marching bands and a bunch of flowers. Like I get it. They've been doing it for a long
It's just
time.
happiness.
And it's those schools, right? Like you got obviously a lot of people. Utah,
Sure.
a lot of Penn State. They're all
Go to
there.
the
Like,
game.
okay, hey, no, they're going to the parade.
Skip the parade is
and
what
then
I'm
going
saying.
to the game.
Hey, Dad, my dad advice: you're going to be cold. You're going to be miserable. You're going to want to come home at 12:30. No, I won't. I'll be fine. Ted's going, John's going, Bob's going. We're going to have a good time. It's fine. Go ahead. How was it? Awful.
You know what was just so great about your voice when you were 16 is it's Michael's voice.
Well, we're all the same.
He doesn't inherit it.
The genes are strong
Michael's voice.
in the Rogers family.
Speaking of the Rose Bowl, I've been doing all day trivia based off of the 2006 Rose Bowl between Texas and USC. So my next trivia question is: so there was a pregame broadcast on ESPN/ABC, and it said, only one analyst chose Texas to win. So which analyst chose Texas to win the game? That's going to be answered next segment.
All right, I have follow-up questions. Is this
they
a
all- were they-
regular part of their broadcast team, or is this somebody they brought in special for
This is
the
a
national championship?
regular person on the
Okay.
broadcast team.
I have a good guess.
I think it was all the same guys that were.
Yeah, they've been those guys have been there. It's probably Fowler
So
at the
it's
time, Herb
Herb
Street,
Street,
Corso,
Corso, yep.
Dez, that whole
All right,
group
so
of
it's
guys.
one of those guys.
Yeah, probably more than likely. I'm going to say Corso. I'm going to guess Lee Corso.
I don't know. Other side.
We will find out. All right, so Trevor Bauer reinstated by an arbiter.
Yep.
He is a member of the Dodgers again. The Dodgers are responsible for a very large chunk of money. He is still a very, very, very good major league pitcher, and he comes with a lot of baggage. There were very ugly accusations against him. No charges were filed against him. It's a mess, and now the Dodgers need to figure out what they're going to do next. And Dodger fans we didn't even ask for calls out. They just started to come in. People have thoughts on Trevor Bauer and how they want to do this.
He's, by the way, will turn 32 in a couple of weeks, so still obviously relatively young, but hasn't pitched in a while. By the way, that part, and I don't know this, Trav. I don't. When you're suspended or you miss 194 games. He did win the Cy Young in 2020.
He's really good.
That much time away from the game and not playing at all, and you did not have any injuries.
It's almost like a wash, right? I mean, he's probably not going to be super sharp.
Yeah.
But he didn't get hurt. He didn't miss time because he was down. I'm sure he took care of his body. I'm sure that he threw. You're not facing major league hitters, but I'm sure he was working.
Put it this
out.
way, he'll have a lot of attention if the Dodgers decide he's gone.
He'll get a lot of guys out. He's still able to do that for sure. Let's go to Redondo Beach and Matt. Matt, you're on with Trav and Slee. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, good afternoon, you guys. Just really quickly, like the Dodgers' success over the last 8 years is fully based on chemistry. I mean, that team just got along, and it was already, we already had difficult time signing him in the first place. And more than any other sports team in LA, I mean, I'm born and raised in LA. The Dodgers, to me, say family. And you think of players like Jackie Robinson, Sandy Koufax, Fernando, Clayton Kershaw. And ultimately, what would Vin Scully say? Like, this just doesn't sit right. And if half of the Dodger fans don't want it, that's way too many.
It's part of the equation for sure, right? I don't know if any one person's opinion would swing it, but if Matt's point, if there's a significant portion, and we could debate what significant is in this situation, but if there's a lot of people like, look, man, I just can't. I said to you during the break, I would be far more comfortable having Carlos Correa as a member of the Dodgers than I would be Trevor Bauer. And I can't even tell you exact, because Trevor Bauer was not charged with a crime. Carlos Correa stole something from the Dodgers, but being a dishonest sportsman in the case of Carlos Correa, to me, is more digestible, as much as I loathe what he did, than having Trevor Bauer on my team. I just don't feel comfortable with that. I think a lot of people would share my opinion.
I'm going to go back to this, and look, he's eventually going to pitch somewhere, right? He's going to eventually somewhere.
Of course.
If I'm the Dodgers, I'm allowing this. I'm also kind of, taking that situation and saying, all right, look, when he originally signed with the Dodgers, it wasn't like it was a quiet signing. It wasn't that there weren't some stuff that were already out there where you could – I'll go back to something you said a half hour ago, Clayton Kershaw. Were players coming out talking about how excited they were to be with Trevor Bauer? But I'm going to also present it this way. Dodger fans that are saying, guys – I don't look at sports as these are the figures that I want my children to. Fans are saying, and I already said it earlier. I hope the Dodgers decide, guys, the Trevor Bauer situation, that page turned already. That was over a year plus ago. We just now officially have to decide by Friday, which I will tell you, it's been how long has it been now? It's been over a week?
At least, yeah. Well, and quite frankly, they knew that this was a possibility for a year, right?
Right. Does the waiting, and because we're Wednesday, Friday's when they have to make a decision by, that makes me think that it's not as easy of a decision that you would have thought before.
Unless they're playing poker, right? The decision could be where they're keeping their decision they got a handful of teams that are interested. Everybody knows that you're selling low, right? Everybody knows that if in fact you are taking offers for him, then you're getting a fraction of his baseball value. And if you already said, look, I'm doing it, then you're going to get even less. Because there's no way that the Dodgers got the decision from the arbiter and decisions pre-made along the way. Let's go to Los Angeles and Chris. Chris, you're on with Trav and Slee. What's up, Chris?
Hey, guys. First of all, this is a very complex topic to me, so I'm glad Bauer, and let's not get this wrong, he admitted to the behavior of slapping and punching this woman. The issue was just consent. So for me as a fan, it's conflicting because even when you file, I'd say absolutely not. So that means I'm okay with a woman even consensually being hit and beaten during sex, and that made me think about myself like, wow, what kind of person am I? So it's extremely, in my opinion, conflicting, and I think that's why it's going to be 51-49 and vice versa, because it's not an easy answer. And
it's not. And thank you for the call, Chris. And it's not. And I think this is why, and I'll put myself in this group, I think this is how the Dodgers will go, but I'm guessing here.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those, I don't want to deal with this. It's probably a bad baseball decision. I shouldn't say probably. It is a bad baseball decision. It's probably a decision that at least a half of your fans or a decent percentage of your fans are going to be like, what are you doing? You're letting a very good player walk out the door. He wasn't even charged with a crime. I get it. It's a very reasonable position to have. Me and I'm guessing the Dodgers say, great, you're right, but we're going to turn the page. We're going to go to the next thing.
Yep.
Let's go to the next thing. Are we going to find a pitcher as good as him? Almost certainly no, but we're going to live with it. I said to you during the breakout, I think.
That sounded good. Everything that you just said, if that was the explanation.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes you just wait to how does something sound and feel?
Yeah.
That sounded good.
Yeah.
That way that you described it, and if that's how the decision that the Dodgers made, what would be incredibly weird is, guys, he's back. He's going to be a part of the Dodgers organization, and get ready for spring training.
That would be odd. It would be odd, but okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah, do it.
It's not an outrageous position to stake out. It's not an outrageous to say, listen, he was involved with a person. They had a consensual relationship. He was accused of something, and no charges were ever filed. An arbiter determined that he's eligible to come back to baseball. He's a member of our team, and we're going to let him play for us. It doesn't feel good, but it's not an outrageous position to take. I'd rather watch him go pitch for the San Francisco Giants and win a bunch of games and shut out the Dodgers 3 or 4 times just to find you can have him. I can't. There are some things that you can get with, and there are some things that you can't. This one makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable knowing the accusations and knowing how the whole thing went down. And it just doesn't sit right.
I think you're, for somebody who a few weeks ago before Correa signed with the Giants and then signed with the Mets and then still hasn't signed.
That's weird.
And we still got that's a whole different topic there. For somebody like you that was making the case, like, look, they need a shortstop. I want to see the Dodgers win, right? That was the case that you were making, that you had 2 great shortstops in two consecutive years that have left the Dodgers. Seager went to the Rangers, and Trey Turner goes to the Phillies. When you were making that kind of claim, in my head, I'm like, all right, I don't know what else to say. All I've heard from Dodger fans is they've been bashing Correa for how long, since the news came out that they cheated and everything else, and now they all of a sudden want them on his team. I do agree that this does feel different, and that this scenario, when the dust settles and it all plays out, if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers and you have to make a case to the 51% or 50% or 49% or whatever percentage of fans that no, it's okay because you got to kind of put your no, everything's okay because, and then the LA Times is going to write something. Everybody's going to go right back into the story from when it originally started. It doesn't sound like one of those situations where you could say, well, all that matters is winning.
It doesn't,
and just to turn the page and say it's okay.
It feels like it would be easier to just say, you know what, we're going to give him his money. We're going to try to find a place for him to play. We're going to try
and
to
let another team deal with that headache.
Somebody deal with the stuff that comes along with having him pitch for your baseball team. Or manageable, and the other side,
I actually didn't know.
I just don't agree
coming
with
into today. I didn't know if your take on this was going to be more along the lines of Al. Was not charged.
He
served 194 games.
He did.
And the Dodgers need a starting pitcher.
They do.
And he is on their roster. He is part of their team. I didn't know which one you were going to take.
Yeah, it's complicated. We'll take some more phone calls as well. Plus, the SC thing, we're right back where we started. It went from this team stinks to, hey, they might win it all, to, hey, what the hell's going on? And that, 3 weeks? That's fun.
Yeah, about 3 weeks.
It's coming up next. It's Travis Lee, 710 ESPN. It is. Hey, Rams fans, Travis Rogers here. You have got to get the new ESPN LA app. In fact, let's go down to the locker room and get a little help.
What's up, Rams fans? This is Matthew Stafford. React to the Rams on the new ESPN LA app.
This is Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams. Listen to all your Rams talk on the ESPN LA app.
You are just one tap away from Rams All Access. Travis and Slee, Mason and Ireland, and Sedano and Cap. Download it now on the App Store or Google Play.
Texas is the most complete football team in this country. Tonight, they shocked the entire universe, not just the planet Earth, the universe. I'm going with Texas Longhorns. Hook up, Texas!
All right, so
He's awesome.
That is the voice of Lee Corso. So to answer the question they're doing all day, trivia regarding USC and Texas, Lee Corso was the only analyst to pick Texas to win the game.
That was a huge
go
pick.
Herb Street.
Were you?
Yeah. I was just going to guess there.
Well, you go back to that, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but they obviously, SC had run the table the year before. And at the beginning of the season, they hadn't played a game yet, right? So the season that ended with them losing to Texas in the Rose Bowl. The beginning of that year, opening day, the ESPN was already doing a feature, is this the greatest college football team of all time? They hadn't played a game yet. And then they'd win, and it's like they'd compare them to this great team or that great team. And every week it was a comparison to another legendary college football team. And Texas kept winning, too. They won every single week as well. And there was an afterthought. I don't want to say an afterthought, but they were thought to be significantly less talented and less dangerous than the USC team. And then blankety blank number 10 showed up, and it's like, oh. Well, that's different. That guy's pretty good. And he just, I don't want to say single-handedly because there were a lot of other great players on the Texas team. But my God, he was so good that night. And I know that he's going for the corner. He's got that moment. Yes, he ran the ball beautifully.
Yeah.
He passed the ball beautifully, too. He was terrific in the pocket.
He was like slow motion, too, on his runs.
Yeah.
Everything was just so smooth.
He's so big.
His strides are so long. They lost 2 games in 3 years.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. Well, the knock on it, so that run where they had, the Matt Leinart run, right? The 3 years that those guys were together.
Yeah.
The first year they won the national championship, it was a split national title, right? They didn't get into I think it was the BCS at the time. They played Michigan in the Rose Bowl and were awarded the AP national championship. They did not win the BCS. So the other side is, well, you actually didn't win it. The next year they did. They just destroyed, I believe it was Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl.
13-0.
Right. The next year, and this is like, well, back to back to back, and they get beat in the final game of the season. Theoretically, they won one. Right? They two, arguably, but the third one, which felt like Money in the Bank, never happened because Vince Young was that good.
Why I love this game too is it's one of the first football games I remember watching. I remember I was in art class the day before, and I was just talking to my friends about the
she already had
game
an iPad.
Last night.
Well, the first iPad ever created. She was watching it.
Right, and I was talking to my friends at the art table, being like, "Did you guys watch the game last night? It was so cool." My dad let me stay up and watch it. That's why I think I had such fuzzy feelings around this game, because it was the first time I was like, "This is really cool."
There is something about that. Do you? Because as you were telling that story, I was trying to think. I don't remember the first game. But I remember it was a really special treat that when my mom and dad would let me stay up during Monday Night Football to hear Howard Cosell do the halftime highlights. That was the thing, right? When I was late 70s, early 80s, there was no NFL prime time. There was certainly no red zone or anything like that. That you would see the highlights from the week on Monday night. It was, 3 or 4 minutes long, and Howard Cosell would narrate. Awesome. It was so cool. And Emily was saying, I remember going to school and you guys see Howard? My dad let me stay up last night. I got to see highlights with Howard Cosell. It was terrific. Just awesome.
You guys want to go to the Rose Bowl?
Don't go to the parade. Do not go to the parade. So SC, Al.
Yeah.
Here's the timeline. They blow out Paul Hackett, long overdue. The team is just stuck in the mud. They're 4-8. They have not been a good team really since Sam Darnold won the Rose Bowl against Penn State. Lincoln Riley shockingly takes the job, kind of out of nowhere, and they give him half of Malibu and all the money.
Yep.
And he comes in. It's like
he owns
all right.
60% of Six Flags.
Magic Mountain. And then he comes in.
I'm a member.
And gets Caleb Williams and gets this player and gets that player. And it's like, they might be pretty good. They start off and they're really good. And they're getting better and better. And then you realize, hey, they actually may be ahead of schedule. Then they lose to Utah. It's like, they can't stop anybody. Okay, this is back to what we thought it would be. And then they start winning games again. And Caleb Williams is terrific week after week after week. Then they find their way into the top 4. They finally get in. They're going to the Pac-12. Here we go. The run of SC dominance starts all over again.
And it's a real, that train is moving. Absolutely.
They lose by giving up 47 points to Utah this time. That was after giving up 43
the first
time.
Yeah.
Then they go into the Cotton Bowl on New Year's Day and give up 46 to Tulane, blow a 15-point lead inside of 2 minutes, give up 45 points to UCLA before the Notre Dame game, and just a series of 40-point explosions against them. And now we're right back to, are they going to win anything because they can't stop anybody on defense? It happened in a year and even more so in a month.
So it does feel like, and we could go back 4-8 last year, and we could spend some time talking about, all right, they're moving in the right direction, right? You got the coach. There's one thing you need in college football. Go get the coach. They got the coach. That's something that you could check that off the list. They got the right guy. I today, I try to ask you this question when they lost to Utah and did not make it to the Final Four, right? I asked you the question at the time, Trev, this is, look, they're not even going to go to the Rose Bowl. Mm-hmm. So all that hype that we had just came to a halt. You're like, just give it a couple of months.
Give it a minute.
Because Caleb Williams is probably going to go win the Heisman. This was before he won it. He won and won the Heisman. There's one player representing as the best player in college football, and he's wearing USC colors, right? And then it was, okay, is he going to play in this? Is he going to play in that Cotton Bowl game? Is it really that big of a deal? Is it important? I think if you just ask kind of the worst-case scenario over these last few weeks, SC did it. To have the best-case scenario and finish with the worst-case scenario, I think they accomplished both of those in a span of one season, which maybe in a couple months you kind of start looking at that car and you start buffing it out and we'll start shining again.
Yeah.
But I think at least for right now, you're looking at SC a lot different than you were looking at them 3 weeks ago.
No question, because they could have lost to Tulane. If they lose to Tulane 21-20, 17-14, even if you lose to them 31-28, guy kicks a 45-yard field goal at the buzzer to beat you, but it's one touchdown, whatever.
It was as in the way they lost is a little bit different than.
Here's the numbers again. You give up 46 to Tulane. In their 2 losses to Utah, they gave up 43 and 47. They gave up 45 to UCLA and escaped with a win. That game very easily could have been a UCLA win. They gave up 533 yards in the Pac-12 championship. They gave up 539 yards in the Cotton Bowl. There are 131 Division I college football teams. USC had the 119th best defense. Okay, there are only 12 teams in the country with a worse. This is USC. This isn't Tulsa. This isn't App State. This is Division I football. All of them. SC, only 12 teams worse than USC? Really? And now I agree with both of the things you said. When we get back to spring ball and Caleb Williams is running around, you're like, yeah, let's go. Mm-hmm. Let's go. The problem is the first time they give up 35 points to an opponent, we're like, here we go again. Mm-hmm. And until you see that kind of go away.
The problem is it's the same problem. And it's attached to the same coach.
Before he even got here, it was the same problem. And you said it going back to the middle of the season. Like, why don't they just tell him? And he's, you're 100% right. But how often do we see people do the same stupid thing over and over again? He clearly has not addressed his inability to get the right kids in on the defensive side of the ball or the right assistants on that side of this. Some part of that equation is not right, and it's not a new problem.
By the way, got a little bit of breaking news here. Breaking news, by the way, of course, brought to you by Valvoline Instant Oil Change. LeBron James out tonight versus Miami. Team says it's a non-COVID illness. Valvoline Instant Oil Change, home with a 15-minute drive-through oil change. Visit SoCalOilChange.com for locations and coupons today. All right, so you're taking on the Miami Heat. Mm-hmm. You're not going to have Anthony Davis, and you're not going to have you and I were talking about a little bit earlier, LeBron's numbers have just been ridiculous. I don't need to go through them. Over the last 10 games that AD's been out. And, oh, by the way, 50+% from the field. Yeah, that just, I guess, kind of falls back to what we were talking about earlier. Can you keep your head above water without AD? Well, if you don't have LeBron James, I don't know how you do that.
You don't, is the short answer. That they're barely keeping their heads above water, I think, is a testament to what LeBron's been able to do. But it's also, and again, non-COVID illness is always kind of one of those vague. He could have the flu. He could have a bad, who knows what it is, right? Yeah. You just don't know. But LeBron misses games periodically. Anthony Davis misses games frequently. And these are probably things that will continue to be the same. When it's been the same for a couple of years, I'm not going to expect them to be different for the rest of this year or next year. And it brings back the same questions that we're talking about, maybe for slightly different reasons. But is this the core that you want to go all in on? Is this the core that you sacrifice draft picks years from now to try to fix a problem that's right here that might not be entirely fixable anyway? They're in exactly the same spot they were for slightly different reasons.
When he eventually makes his return and he does come back, you got to be thinking it's in at least a couple weeks from now. And I think the question, Trav, is going to be, it's going to take time for AD to come back. Well, is then AD going to be, it's not you want him back and he's giving you 22 and 9 a game. He was 34 and 17 a game. Guy. Is that going to, how long is it going to take for that to come back? So we'll have to wait and see.
Raider Rubin just tweeted us. It says, Trav, did you just refer to Clay Helton as Paul Hackett? Maybe. Did I? I might have. I would counter Raider Rubin by saying, what's the difference? I may have misspoke and misidentified Clay Helton as Paul Hackett. And again, I ask you, what is the difference?
Well, we have no way of knowing. There's no way to go back to any of the stuff that we do.
It's all the same. There was a 30 for 30 on it as well. See?
I mean, they have the receipts.
Yeah, look, they record things around here.
I was going to go back and check.
You don't do that. Well, it's right there. Taylor did it for you.
I was so confident to do that in that game with the picks, and I'm like, oh, no, they were right. They were exactly right.
Oh, we're still 2 weeks behind on that. I need to look at that, too.
Oh, don't worry. Darn. Emily did really well the last time we did pick it. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'll do it during the next break. We got the dump coming up.
So happy
for
you.
Super cross. It looks like Clinton Yates is in the house. It's coming up next. It's Travis Lee, 710.
Hey, Laker fans, John Ireland here. Have you downloaded the new ESPN LA app? You got to get this thing. It's great. You can get Travis and Sliwa, Mason and Ireland, Sedano and Cap, and all of our Lakers talk with Slee right in the palm of your hand.
You're just one tap away from everything Lakers. You could even win Lakers tickets.
React to the Lakers on ESPN LA app.
Download the new ESPN LA app in the App Store or on Google Play.
It's time for the dump.
Happy 19th birthday to Victor Wembanyama, who turns 19 years old today. I bet you Victor Wembanyama is enjoying his life so far.
I'd say so.
I bet you that things are looking up for him.
I think he's past his prime, personally.
So Lakers don't need him?
19 years old.
And the whole
He's
world
19 years old.
is just waiting to be explored.
Did I tell you the story? I think I mentioned to you when Lakers were in Vegas and they had their preseason game there. He showed up, and he's sitting just basically maybe like one row back, 6-7 seats away from Bron and Anthony Davis.
Okay.
Bro, if you just look at everybody, he was just starting to get his name known where everybody's like, all right, yeah, who's this guy? He's going to be drafted number 1. He's how big, 7'4", but plays like KD or whatever it is. Even Bron and Anthony Davis were like, hey, look who it is.
Wow.
Isn't that insane?
Star power.
That is just
He
that is
definitely
crazy.
has star power. No two ways about it. However, let's just wait and see. We've seen it so many times.
A little bit too much of a stick figure for you?
Well, you just super tall and
Yeah.
very thin is not the greatest combination in the world.
Well,
and we've seen him. You remember Todd Van Poppel?
Of course,
right?
Todd Van Poppel.
He's the next coming over. He's Roger Clemens and Nolan Ryan together. He pitched like 6 minutes in the big leagues.
This is what's unique about this. I'm not saying that there aren't players. Zion, everybody knew about Zion, right? So, but Zion he played a year in college, so you got to kind of actually see him and watch him a little bit. We've been talking about Victor a year before the draft.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it almost kind of makes you think of Bron when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, whatever it was. We'll see what
For every
happens.
LeBron, Tiger, and Serena, there are dozens of other can't-miss guys that
For
miss
sure.
by a mile.
Yeah.
That miss by a
Or
mile.
guys who just turn into regular guys,
Yeah.
which is something that we see with some regularity these days, too. Like, okay, they're in the league, but, was it worth the number 1 overall pick? I don't know.
We'll throw this in the dump real quick just because we didn't get a chance to talk about it at all yesterday. Donovan Mitchell just put up 71.
And they got drug tested immediately afterward,
saw that, yeah.
which is hilarious. Like, whatever drugs you got that allow you to put up 70, give me one. Give me one of those. I'll go search the shelves myself for that drug.
My favorite is just random. Yeah.
yeah,
just-
sure, okay. All right,
It's just random.
I'm sure Donovan Mitchell is as clean as the freshly driven snow. Okay, let me just stipulate that before I say anything else. I don't care who's on what.
I don't either.
I
never have.
really don't give a damn.
If you're good at the sports,
Yeah.
you take the drugs.
I don't
you take that risk yourself.
I'm assuming here what you're referring to is everybody's on it. Is
No,
that what you're
not
talking about?
necessarily.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
but
not
what,
what I'm
what if
saying.
it's giving one guy an advantage over another?
So what?
I don't care.
So what?
But wait, what do you mean, so what? You
If
don't want
I
the
do-
guys to all play by the same rules?
If I do 10 more push-ups before I get to the radio studio, Alan, and I've got one better zinger, you know what? I'm the guy that did 10 more push-ups and I got one more zinger. You don't want to do that? That's on you. You know what I mean?
Here is coffee.
They're all competing in the same game, is what I'm saying. Like, and sure, there are limits. You know what I mean? Maybe not limits, but like there's some reasonable level of whatever. But like Sorry, guy gets 70 points on you. I'm not drug testing him. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not going to get worked up on any of that stuff.
Neither am I.
I used to be like that, to your point, Al. Well, if this is that, the players themselves have created these environments where they don't police each other. They don't care.
Most baseball guys don't actually care, man. It's
No.
not a big deal. It just isn't. Not to me.
And I want to see somebody run the 100 meters in 6 seconds.
Sure.
Well, it doesn't happen.
Let's
You
do
don't.
it.
You don't hear that in NBA often.
No.
You hear it predominantly in
No,
baseball.
it's usually in
football
other
and
things,
baseball,
but
yeah.
we would also be pretty naive if we thought that it isn't. It's
Right.
everywhere. If bigger, stronger, faster is better in whatever it is you're doing, rest assured that someone's trying to get a little bigger, a little stronger, and a little faster.
10 years ago, I should have took it in league play. Sliwa.
At the Kennedy Recreation Center.
Did he just touch the rim?
Why is we so water from outside? What happened?
It went out my outside game.
Have you guys seen the snow owl in my neighborhood?
No.
Apparently, this is there's a snow owl in Orange County.
People are lining the streets
Yes.
to go see this snow
Wow.
owl.
It's
So
on perched. The picture I saw is perched on somebody's roof of
Yes.
their house, and it's big and it's white and it's awesome looking, but it does not belong in Orange County.
So,
I don't know what it's
do you
doing.
guys watch Harry Potter?
I mean, I've seen
Every
Harry
night.
Potter. Yeah.
Every
so
night.
The owl in Harry Potter looks like this owl.
Hold on. What's the name of that owl again?
It's
Hootie?
Hedwig.
Does it start with an H? Right, Hedwig. Okay, I knew that
was
much.
close.
Okay, I knew that much. Hedwig, because Hedwig is like kind of a critical character, right?
Yes.
Does
Spoiler
stuff,
alert.
does stuff like between the Muggles and the Wizards that
Sure.
other things can't do, right?
Oh, maybe there's someone in Orange County that's
This is what I'm
calling their
saying
owl.
here. Yes.
I just like random
This is where
wild
you play the
animals
Harry Potter music.
in environments they don't exist.
Yeah.
That
That's
does not.
it?
That's it.
Hold on.
That belongs in Tahoe or the Alps. It doesn't belong in Cypress,
That's a
California.
good-looking bird.
I know.
Wow.
Telling you, if that's on my house, I'm charged.
Show Taylor.
You want to come by?
$5 to see it.
Slee.
You want to come
Show
by?
Taylor.
Right? Look at that thing.
Beautiful looking. bird.
Handsome fella.
Yeah, it looks lost.
We should name him. Somebody's got to name
Well,
him.
name him Travis.
Like
obviously.
What was the mountain lion in Griffith Park? P23 or something
Yeah,
like that.
who
P22.
Who just passed
P22.
recently?
Yeah, poor
unfortunately.
P22. I
There it
love
is.
wildlife where it shouldn't be. I want a tiger in Chatsworth.
So will this get you to talk to your actual neighbors, Travis?
If he had a snow owl, I would come out and ask what's going on. Yes.
There
Yes.
was in Sierra Madre. Okay, there was. Long story short, I'm not gonna get into the whole story. There's a lady there, and my girl knew her, and she's talking about in the backyard of her house, and her backyard is basically open land, basically more foresty.
Sure.
Okay. And she's showing us videos on her phone. She's like, "Yep, that's when the bear just came over with their cubs, 2 cubs, whatever the case is." And I'm standing in the place. I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
My first ever apartment I owned by myself was in Sierra Madre. I know exactly where you're talking, and you'd get coyotes and bears and things who would just walk.
No thanks.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
it's pretty cool.
They show up in people's swimming pools. They come down to chill out.
Just kicking
literally.
Hey, pass a beer. Your boy Wile E. Coyote's here. Yeah.
Today is National Hypnotism, easy for me to say, day. Have any of you been hypnotized before?
I don't trust people
No,
enough to
I
do
have
this
not.
in public.
No.
No
Taylor,
way.
you
My
got
sister
hypnotized,
has.
yes?
Yeah, at a Future Business Leaders of America convention in high school, got hypnotized for a good 5 minutes.
Did it work, or did you go with the bit?
I don't remember it, but I was told that I flipped somebody off. I was on a motorcycle.
So
apparently.
you don't remember?
I don't recall.
So I was in high school. I was not the hypnotee, but
Okay.
they brought in a hypnotist and pulled a classmate of mine, Gigi Yount, out of the crowd. She was 5 feet tall, 100 pounds. She was a tiny little
Sure.
girl. And they put 2 folding chairs 5 feet apart where just the back of her head and just the heels, and nothing underneath her. And she was able to hold herself in that position for 3 or 4 minutes.
Wow.
Because she had been hypnotized like she was a board or something. It was the weirdest, most extraordinary thing I've seen. It was awesome. I believe it.
I gotta go.
Mace, you ever been-
Island's got
You outta
stuff to
here?
do. It's good to
Mace,
see
you
you
ever
guys.
been hypnotized?
Been hypnotized,
yes,
Mace?
I have. I got hypnotized by a guy named Dr. Sokini, not his real name, when I was getting buried alive in a radio bit, and they hypnotized me first. So when they picked me up, I was just straight as a board.
Jeez.
That's
Is that
what I
what you
saw.
were just talking about?
That's
yes,
what I saw.
straight as a board.
Yes.
And then they put me in the coffin, and then they lowered me into the ground, and then I was there for 48 hours. And supposedly the hypnotism part of it was going to help me do it. I survived it, but That's my
Was it
experience with
scary?
hypnotism.
Do you remember the sensation of it all?
Remember of it?
The hypnotism or the being buried?
The being buried portion.
The being buried portion was actually crazy. There was a camera inside the coffin, so that if people came, it was like at some car dealership. It was like Joe's Ford, and we do it there, and people come out and they can watch on a monitor what it looks like inside the coffin. And I was there for 48 hours. We raised $100,000 for the Toledo Public Schools.
Wow!
And we restored some of the athletic programs that
you
had
were
been
in
canceled.
a coffin for 48 hours.
In a coffin, buried literally 6 feet under for 48 hours. Yep.
I don't like being in the backseat
Dumb
of a car
radio
for
bits.
45 minutes.
Dumb radio bits.
We ate a hot chicken sandwich, and then
That's true.
And
Never
he does
again.
this, and we're never.
I would
again.
never do it again. That's for sure. That was a
Absolutely.
one-time appearance.
Let's do a little super crosstalk.
ESPN AM 710 Los Angeles.
KRDC AM 1110 Pasadena, Los Angeles.
K256CX 99.1 FM Pasadena, Los Angeles.
It's the greatest segment in LA sports radio history.
Oh my God. When the shows come together for magic on the radio.
It will only grow stronger. Super Crosstalk.
Are we ready for Mason and Ireland to join Travis and Slee?
Super Crosstalk begin.
It's time for Super Crosstalk.
You were also encased in a block of ice?
In a block of ice, yes. Also for 48
You heard
hours.
What are you guys doing to each other in
David
Toledo?
Blaine.
That was at
David Blaine. That literally.
That was
is-
at Sam's Toyota. Come out to Sam's Toyota, see the man buried in a block of ice.
You're moving some Camrys.
You
back
were
in the
David
day.
Blaine before David Blaine.
By the way, the David Blaine thing, so I lived in New York while he was in this sort
Yep.
of case. Do you remember him
Yeah.
hanging?
Yeah.
And it was a clear...
Yeah.
The whole time, he was there for 48 hours. I'm like, I've done that. It was absolutely in front of my apartment in New York on Riverside Boulevard. And the whole time, and it was a Trump building, and Trump was there. He's trumpeting, blah, blah, blah. And I the whole time I was thinking, I've done that.
That's incredible.
David Blaine, I've done that.
Ireland, have you ever been hypnotized?
No, I'm scared to.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either.
I'm afraid of what might
Bark
pop
like a
out.
dog.
Yeah. So are all the thoughts you have about like everyone you work with, do they come out when you're hypnotized?
I don't know if it's
they
truth
might.
serum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sure-
I don't trust myself to get hypnotized.
I'm sure it can be used as truth serum, right?
Yeah. If you can live in a block of ice for a couple of
Yeah.
days and be buried alive, there's probably a lot you
I'm
can
used
do.
to people saying, those shows in Vegas where all of a sudden somebody says bark like a dog, or every
Yeah.
time you hear the word whatever, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe in that.
They do those at halftime of NBA games sometimes. They'll bring a hypnotist out, and he'll start hypnotizing, fans, 10 or 15 of them. And the stuff they make him do scares the crap out of me. I'm afraid I would...
It's the physical stuff that's really like to your point, bark like a dog every time you hear the word fire engine. Yeah, whatever. We can all do that. But they put a smaller person between two chairs with just the back of their head, just their heels.
Yes.
And they can hold that position for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're a gymnast or some contortion, nobody can do that. And they pull somebody out of that. That's when you're like, okay, maybe there's something to it.
Yeah. Hey, can I circle back to something you guys were talking about earlier? You say no on Trevor Bauer. Mace, I know you're a hard no.
I'm a hard no on Trevor Bauer.
Sliwa,
yeah.
what are you?
I'm a no.
Okay. So isn't the only question we should be asking, does he help you win? Now,
No,
if he's
I don't think so.
No, it's a little
I
bit
don't
like the
think so.
Carlos Correa conversation.
Right.
The Dodgers came out and said, no, we understand that a significant portion of the fan base would not be happy with us if we signed Carlos Correa, and so they opted out of any conversations with him. That was the organization reacting to public opinion that they heard from fans.
The Dodgers have been very reluctant to engage in PR things that may not be popular.
Yeah,
too.
Aroldis Chapman's a
Aroldis
good
Chapman
case,
is
yeah.
a good example of that. Trevor Bauer, when he was originally accused of what he was accused of, they very quickly got him out the door.
And
They
do
did
you
not
remember
mess
how
around with
that story ended?
There was no charges filed.
No, I'm talking about Chapman.
He went to
Chapman
the Yankees.
went to the Yankees.
No, he did not. He
Was it
went
the
to
Cubs?
He went
Oh,
to the
to the
Cubs
Cubs,
and
right.
made
Right.
the last out that eliminated the Dodgers in the National League Championship Series, which happened to be the night of your dad's service. Because I was driving back from, it must have been in October.
Yeah, it was in October.
Because I was driving back from the desert
October
where we went
20th,
out
something like
to,
that,
to
yeah.
celebrate the life of Mace's dad, and we're driving back, and I went,
if they bring Aroldis Chapman into close this game, because it was kind of a one-sided game, and
Yeah.
Cubs
Yeah.
are ahead, I go, isn't that like the ultimate slap in the face to the Dodgers? And sure enough, they did.
Although I mean, obviously it was terrible in the moment, but I actually agree with the Dodgers and their move still.
I
their
get it.
decision.
But so the question to ask yourselves is, okay, if, let's say, the Dodgers pass on Trevor Bauer like you guys all want them to, and Trevor Bauer goes and signs with the Braves, and in Game 7 of the National League Championship Series, he throws a 2-hitter and you're out.
I can live with it.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
I can live with
That's
it.
the question.
Me too.
And
by the
just
way,
to add to that, that means the Dodgers are paying the $22 million
correct.
minus. I
In
think,
other words,
minus the $700,000.
He'd get the minimum.
Yep.
I think the only question you
Atlanta or-
should ever ask is, does he help us win? And in the case of Bauer, the answer to that may be no. He may poison the clubhouse so much, and the guys don't want him there, that it serves as a... Like, here's another example and a difference between Mason and I. I think if Kyrie wants to come here next year, the Lakers are crazy to pass on him.
I think
and Mason won't touch him with a 10-foot
It's a
pole.
nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's an automatic nightmare.
Okay, what's the nightmare been when they've won 17 of their last 18 games and he's been their best player?
It's been the nightmare every time other
no
than
matter
the 17 of 18 games.
right. There's going to be all kinds of drama and all
You
kinds
can't
of
just
other
take
stuff.
the good
Great
stuff.
for talk radio,
It's all
but
of it.
but
Well,
I
that's
don't
another
want
reason.
Kyrie.
That's another reason.
Yeah,
Well, that's a different conversation altogether.
From a content perspective,
But
that
that's
makes
a different
perfect sense.
content.
I'll throw this out there because I think what John is asking, we talked about Correa before he signed with San
And
Francisco.
by the way,
and then
Correa may come back around.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
And
He's
he
still-
is not
still out
signed.
there.
signed with San
What if you
Francisco,
could-
then
okay,
signed
let
with
me
the
ask you
Mets,
guys
but
this.
have not signed.
What if you could get Correa 1 year, $10 million?
No.
I would do it.
No, he. So I mean,
Yeah,
John,
I
John, this
wouldn't.
is going to go to your case because, as big of a Dodger fan as they come, he was making the case. Ramona was sitting here, if you remember, right, Mase? And Trav was making the case. Look, I've watched the Dodgers over the last X amount of years. They do not have a shortstop right now. I'd like to win,
Right.
but for some reason, and I think there are a lot of people that feel this way, that the Correa thing is different than the Bauer thing, and there
Right.
are some differences to it. Because I think if you think that you'd rather have, in the Correa situation, you're okay with him signing, but you're not okay with Bauer, there are some differences there. And I mentioned him. LA Times had done a poll. Dodgers Nation did a poll.
50-50.
It's and the Dodgers Nation was more closer to 60% that they want Trevor Bauer.
60% yes.
60%
The LA
yes.
Times was 51% yes,
49.
49% no.
So you're not. There are a lot of people, I think, Dodger fans that view your
Right.
take on this the similar way.
Well, and this comes down to a decision, too, on how good is the player.
Very.
Well, like, for example, when Kobe went through Colorado, if that's a lesser player, you just cut him. But Kobe was so valuable that the Lakers stood behind him. Now, Trevor Bauer has not been charged with a crime.
Correct.
It's a he said, she said kind of thing.
Yep.
And I've read every piece, and some of it's pretty ugly. I've read every piece of evidence out there. There's a reason he hasn't been charged with a crime. Now, if you want to morally judge him and say he's a bad guy, I can totally see that argument. And that's enough for you to say he's out. But then you can't complain if he comes back and beats you.
No,
I
and I
can
won't.
live with it. I don't want it to go that way, but if that were the end result of the decision to move on from him, okay.
Yeah, I think
okay, because
the associate the only I guess here's where we differ. You say the only question to ask is if it will help us win.
Right.
I think winning comes at a price, and that's not one I want to pay.
Right. So and this comes up every year with some types of players in some type of
Every league.
We should
Right.
also say,
Every
by
league.
the way, there's no indication necessarily that somebody's going to sign Trevor Bauer.
Right. And I
Somebody
think you
will.
guys talked about
think
trading
somebody
him.
will?
I think he's untradeable. I think that they're just
even,
waiting
even
on the
pennies on the dollar.
No. I wouldn't even I don't even think teams will give up a
No,
minor
because I
leaguer
think
for
people
him.
know the Dodgers are going to cut him,
Well,
and then he'll come at the
correct.
minimum.
Correct.
But then you're in a different. But I agree with you that he is virtually untradeable. But if you think he's going to be available to you in free agency, and then you can go there. But if there's 10 teams that are kicking the tires in free agency, and all I got to do is give up a low-level prospect or two,
Right.
then really what is the cost? I agree you're not going to get equal value or anywhere near it. But I do think that there's a
I'll
scenario
give you
where
another
get something.
scenario that's being kicked around in the NBA. The Charlotte Hornets have a player named Miles Bridges who's
Yes.
really, really good. He was involved in a very ugly domestic violence situation that has him out of the league right now. They
I think it
for
will
my
happen.
mark, intentionally floated a trial balloon about 2 weeks ago that they're bringing him back. That basically they think he served his time, and that they're going to bring him back. If you go back and look at the Cubs from when they signed Aroldis Chapman and then went on to win the World Series, they paid no price for that. They didn't take a PR hit, nothing. I mean,
well, we don't know what it was like in Chicago when they actually did sign. We don't know what the public reaction was the day they said Aroldis Chapman is on our team.
I talked to several people that were around that in Chicago, and they said if he helps the Cubs win the World Series, that he won't pay for a drink for the rest of his life.
I get that, but I also think that there's a different standard. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's different. That when the player that is involved in the ugly thing goes to the next place and they do the I've learned my lesson, I regret my mistakes, and all these things, you get the proverbial fresh start somewhere else.
Right.
I think it's much easier in the new place as opposed to coming back
and by the way,
that have been here before.
With Trevor Bauer, I don't think you're going to get the I've made a mistake, I learned my lesson.
Clearly,
you're not going to get that.
Clearly,
from him.
he made it very crystal clear. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yep.
And he's
like tripled down on that.
Absolutely, he has, and there have been no charges filed. But I would be, and I keep coming back to this. I don't want to see him pitch for the team that I root for.
I don't either.
I can't even.
I have a hard time rooting for him.
Very.
But here's the other thing. I can't tell you how much of this comes down to how good the player is. I'll give you a crystal clear example. Joe Mixon. And, there's video of Joe Mixon punching a girl in the face.
Yeah.
In the face. Like drops her like a bag of rocks. It's really ugly. And Joe Mixon basically served his time, for what he did. And the Bengals drafted him high, and now he's a star running back in Cincinnati, and nobody talks about it. Who was the running back in Ray Rice?
Yeah, Never played again.
Never played again because he wasn't as good as Joe Mixon.
And Joe Mixon was just getting started. Ray Rice was at the end.
So we're not even talking about this if Trevor Bauer didn't win the Cy Young Award 3 years ago.
Trevor Bauer is one of the 5 best pitchers on the planet.
Right. And he's super nerdy into it.
Yeah,
and
he's a terrific athlete, but doesn't mean he has to be here. That he will pitch again. I'm virtually certain of it, but it doesn't mean he has to pitch here.
And the case,
I can live with him going somewhere else.
And the case, and that's kind of what we were talking about. You had some listeners that called in. If you're looking at these athletes as, hey, I'm holding the moral high ground based on there's definitely, I think, a piece of a fan base that's always going to say, does he help us win? Does he not? Are you closer to a World Series? Are you not? Do the Dodgers need a pitcher? They do, and we'll see what eventually happens.
I remember when I was working this is years and years ago, I was working as a TV reporter in San Diego, and I'm down at spring training, and Joe McIlvaine was the GM of the Padres, and I'm in his office, and he goes, hey, I'm going to tip you on something. I said, what? He goes, I'm going to sign Gary Sheffield. And I said, why? Isn't he like throwing balls?
Right, he was trying to tank
into
it on
the
purpose
stands
in
on purpose in Milwaukee and hitting like 170. He goes, yeah, he's not trying. I go, well, then why do you want that guy? And
because he's awesome.
He goes, you can't replace sheer talent. And he goes, if he acts up here, we'll just cut him. But they went and signed him. They got him around Fred McGriff, who I think he was his uncle or his cousin or something, and they both went off for he hit 330 with 30 homers, and it was McIlvaine was right the whole time. And Sheffield basically never had another issue. It went from the Padres to the Marlins to the Dodgers to
Yankees.
Yeah, and was great. He might end up in the Hall of Fame.
But that was not a moral issue. He
was throwing balls into the stands on purpose.
He was tanking, but
that's a more palatable moral issue, if you will. It's something that you can.
Scenario.
It's more comparable to why you don't want Kyrie. He was
Correct.
Drama. He would create drama.
Yes.
Anybody who'd be willing to throw a ball into the stands on purpose to get traded.
Does this factor into it? When he was initially accused of the thing, there weren't a single person in a Dodger uniform or an executive that had hey, listen, I think he's a pretty good guy, except blah, 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 blah. It was he's gone, he's suspended, and they locked that thing down. So
I think it was
no support for him at all.
I think it was true, by the way, what you just said, but I think it was more of we were in the middle of the Me Too revelations. It was the Weinstein trial. It was everything. It was nobody wanted to be on the wrong side of domestic violence, even in an argument. I think that all the Dodgers, if you notice, they didn't come out against him. They wouldn't talk about it.
They didn't say anything.
They just shut no comment top to bottom.
When the Dodgers acquired him originally, and like we've been talking about here for a few minutes, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's been on 4 teams in 7 years.
Right.
Yeah.
As one of the best pitchers in baseball. That in and of itself is a red
usually
flag.
happen.
He's,
by the way,
he's Rasheed Wallace.
Two of those years, he had a 6.79 ERA and a 4.79 ERA. So is he really one of the best pitchers on the planet? He had 2 good years.
Yeah.
Well,
He
his
was good with
last-
the Dodgers. He was good with the Reds.
He was good with the Indians.
Before that, he's had a rough year.
Yeah,
He
but
was 6.79
the
ERA.
last full season he pitched, he won the Cy Young Award.
Correct.
And-
that was a shortened season.
He was in Arizona for a hot minute, right? They drafted
Yeah.
like 2nd or 3rd overall. He and Garrett Cole went.
Well,
right
he got
next to
run
each
out of
other.
Cleveland when he threw the ball into the stands.
And nearly cut his finger off with a drone.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
never-
then got to the Dodgers and ran into this problem. So he's Kyrie. Drama is going to follow him wherever he goes. But look at the numbers Kyrie's putting up.
Well, we'll see where he goes.
3 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see where.
Right.
We'll see what that looks
you want
like
to bet
in a
against
month.
the Nets right now?
Not right now. So let's check in and get an
I'll tell you
impression.
what.
They've won
rolling
11 in a row.
people.
Yeah,
It is
but
impressive.
I'll tell you what. I know people who say they should have sold high on Anthony Davis. That
Well,
when he was on a
guys,
tear, that would have been a good spot
Guys,
to trade him.
what is more
High
likely
value.
true? Everything that Kyrie has done or the last month?
Yeah.
What is more likely a
His
representation of who he
history
is?
going to repeat itself.
Right, but his talent has never been under question, and I
True.
think that's kind of the same with Bauer. It's just, can he stay drama-free? That's what you're betting on. And what I would argue, as somebody who would be okay if the Dodgers brought Bauer back, is I would say he's not on a short leash. He's on no leash.
I know you would
The
be
the minute he does anything, you just cut him.
You said you'd be okay if they did it. Do you think they'll do it?
No.
No,
either.
no.
Matter
absolutely not.
of fact, I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that they have to make a decision by Friday.
Yeah.
They're going to release him.
I think so, too. I think that's the end result.
Yeah,
of
I
this.
think that's it. The 15th is Friday, right? That's
Yep.
the date.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll.
Oh, I
release it.
think, no, isn't it this Friday? I
It's
think
this
they got to
Friday.
decide by
This
this
Oh,
Friday.
it's this Friday.
This
Okay.
Friday.
Yeah,
They
which
made
is the
this
6th.
decision long before the arbiter
Absolutely.
reinstated
And
him.
by the way, you can see they're expecting the Bauer salary based on the way they've handled
No
the
question about
offseason.
it. Mason and Ireland coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow.